Python, an interpreted high-level programming language. What is a programming language? A programming language is a language used for humans to communicate with computers. This is the human. This is the code he or she writes, and this is the output. There are two types of programming languages, which we'll learn about in the next slide. The two types of programming languages are interpreted high-level programming language and compiled language. Some examples of an interpreted high-level programming language is Python, Ruby, APL, and more. Some examples of a compiled language are Java, C++, C, etc. So let's see what the difference is between that interpreted high-level programming language and a compiled language. What is a high interpreted language? The language we will be learning is Python. Python is an example of one of these high interpreted languages. So what's the difference between the two types of programming languages? A high interpreted language works like this. The first step is to code your code, or write your code. The second step is simple. You simply press a button to run your code. This interpreted part is already done for you. What's a compiled language? We know that in a high interpreted language, we write the code and simply press a button to run it. But in compiled language, it isn't that easy. You have to go through a series of steps before you can run your code. The first step is the same. You code your code. The second step is different. Instead of pressing a button to run your code, you have to go through the forces of compiling and software. The forces of compiling are pre-processing, compilation, assembly, and linking. So some wonder, what's the advantage in a compiled language? It's so much harder. This is the advantage. Compiled language are very optimized, while a high interpreted language isn't. This is because in a compiled language, you can choose your software and the forces of compiling. But in a high interpreted language, your interpreted part is already done for you. So let's see what we're going to learn today in Python. Today we're going to learn about variables, data types, and functions. The data types we'll be learning about is integer and string. The functions we'll be learning about is print and input. So first, we're going to see how to print integers and strings in Python. Print. What does print mean in the real world? Well, it means to produce text in different quantities. So in Python, it kind of means the same thing. Print is basically a function which prints some text onto the screen. Strings and integers. A string in the real world means different types of material tied together. In Python, it is very similar, but instead of different types of material, it is different characters. Characters meaning keyboard characters, not meaning like superheroes and Marvel characters. Everything I'm writing here is a string according to Python. In Python, anything you write in between double or single quotes is a string, but in some cases this won't be true. Integers are basically whole numbers in the real world. They mean the same exact thing in Python. So let's see how we can print strings and integers in Python version 2 and 3. So now we're going to learn how to print strings and integers. I'm going to begin off like this. Every time you see a beginner's Python video, you're going to always see print hello world. Now the first time you see it, you're like, wow, that's amazing. The second time you see it, you're like, cool, yay. The third time you see it, you're like, nope, no way, different word, please. So we're going to pick the word dog because there's absolutely no relation with it with Python. We're picking dog anyways. So we're going to bring off coding like this. We're going to see the different ways people can print things in Python. You could have, if you've seen many videos, you have seen that some people print strings like this. Some print like this. Some print like this. And others print like this. Now, maybe you've noticed in the first two lines, you can see a red error. Now, what could this red error mean? Red usually means error, so I'm just thinking this might be error. So let's just run it and see if anything's happened. So yes, there's an error in line number 2. So if we go to line number 2, that's our first line. It says print space dog. Now the reason this is not working is not because we've coded it wrong, but it's because of the Python version. This is Python version 3, so this will not work. If you have Python version 2, which I will show you in just a minute, then it will work. The same thing goes on for number 3. So you might be wondering, what is this hashtag doing here? Hashtags are used when you want to make a comment to yourself or a note to yourself. So you're going to hashtag this out. Let's try out number 3. It still doesn't work. So the same thing is a problem. We didn't code anything wrong, but it's because of the Python version, it will not work. Keep in mind, Python's versions matter a lot when you're printing. Now let's try number 4. It does work, and so does number 5, because when we asked it to print dog, it prints dog. And we asked it to print dog again, it prints dog. So now I'm going to explain. Every time you print you want to print something in Python version 3, I'm going to make a note here. Python version 3. Every time you print something in Python version 3, you have to put parentheses, meaning the first time, whatever you're printing, you gotta go print this way. Now put anything you want to put inside these brackets, but you will have to have those brackets, or it will not work. Not work. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, so what do these quotation marks mean? Why is it 2 quotation marks? Why not just 1? Make it simpler. This is the reason why. If you're watching this video and you have somewhere to code Python, I want you to print something. Put quotation marks, and then close your eyes and type whatever you need to type on your keyboard. Okay, and then run it. Mine works, but some of yours might not work. The reason is, let's say I wanted to print a quotation mark in my quotation mark string. Remember, a string always has quotation marks around it. It will not be considered a string if it isn't, and it will not work either. So let's say if I'm going like this and I want to put a quotation mark here. Now, again, we see this red line, but we're not sure what's the reason why it's not working. So let's just run it. There's a problem. The problem is, this is a computer, guys. We're trying to communicate to it. What it does is, it basically captures this in its mind. And then it starts going on to the next one. It says, okay, this is a quotation mark. Is this a quotation mark? No. Is this a quotation mark? No. Is this a quotation mark? No. Is this a quotation mark? Yes. Okay, that means this is the string. Now, we know that this is not supposed to be the string. We know that this is supposed to be the string. But how do we fix that? To fix that, instead of double quotation marks around our string, let's put single quotation marks around our string. And try it. It works. The same thing goes if you want to print a single quotation mark. You would have to go and print something like this. Now, some people wonder, is it possible to print something with both double quotation mark and single quotation mark around it, the string? So I'm going to say my string is dog again, and put double quotation marks on this side and single quotation marks on this side. there's a red error, so probably it's not going to work. Let's try. No, it doesn't work. Sorry guys, it just does not work. It looks for the end of your double quotation mark, so it will not work. Let's just delete this. So now I'm going to show you for Python version 2 on how these two work and the same concepts apply. Before we go on though, there might be another case that your word might not work. This is one. Let's say I wanted to print a backslash in my statement. So I would do print double or single quotation marks, put something random, and then in the middle of nowhere, just put a backslash. So usually, you might have noticed that all the strings are this weird greenish color. But in this string, there is no red line or a yellow color, but there is no green fold. There's this small black thing. So probably there's nothing wrong, but let's run it to make sure. So we don't get a good statement. We have a weird arrow looking thing in the middle of nowhere instead of a backslash F. Now here's the problem with backslash. When you try to print backslash in a string, it sometimes doesn't work because certain statements, backslash N or backslash T, backslash F, mean certain things. Let's say instead of F, I put N, which stands for backslash new line. So what this is going to do is going to put ASD, new line, and it's going to print on the next line over here, J or G, H, J, K. So when we run it, see, it did that. If we put backslash T, then we'll get a tab, which means ASD, tab, J, H, J, K. See? So that's why you usually don't try putting backslash in your statements. You can, but we're going to learn about that later using variables. Variables will help us doing and printing backslash in different statements. So for now, let's go back to version 2 to see how these printing dogs is different. But before I begin on how to print strings and integers in rebel.it or Python version 2, I'm going to explain how to print integers. Now, printing integers is not much different than printing strings. Of course, first in Python version 3, you're going to have to do print brackets, but instead of putting quotation marks, you don't need that. You can simply just enter your number. Just to clarify, integers are not strings or words. They're more of numbers, like 1, 2, 3, -4, -1000, -152, many more numbers. But when you're printing integers, you don't need any quotation marks around it. You can simply just print your number. And if you run it, it'll print your number, 123. You can also print the string 123. What I mean by this is you can put quotation marks and do 1, 2, 3. And when you run it, it'll print the same thing. But when someone tells you, I want to print the integer 123, you're going to have to use this. If someone says, I want to print the string 123, you need to code out this. Now, I'm going to explain why we have both these ways to express integers when we're going to talk about variables. But right for now, we're going to go on to rebel.it to see how we can print strings and integers in Python version 2. So now we're going to learn how to print things in Python version 2. In Python version 3, we learned that every time you need to print something, you need brackets around it. But in Python version 2, you can use both ways. Now what I mean by this is you can have brackets around your string or integer or something, or you don't have to. Now when we were doing Python version 3 or PyCharm, we realized that this line didn't work. And we also found out that when there's some piece of red or light yellow color, there was something wrong. Here, there is no such thing. So we're going to test it by pressing this button run. There is no red error. No error. It prints cat, like we said, 2 times. So it doesn't matter how you print in Python version 2. You can print with brackets or without brackets. Both work. And you can also print integers the same way too. I can print 9 with brackets, or I can print 9 without brackets. And when I press run, it does it. So now we're going to learn how to use variables in Python. Back to slides. So what are variables in Python? Variables in Python mean things which hold data types, such as a string or an integer, which we just learned about. The variable is kind of like a box, while the data values are like things that are inside the box. Another way to think about it is to compare it to math. Sometimes you get an equation like x plus 5 is equal to 10. What is x? In math, x is considered a variable and holds a value. And it is the same thing in Python, except it holds more than just a number. It can hold strings, it can hold lists, it can hold dictionaries. It can hold many things, which we'll learn about in the next couple of videos. So now we're going to see how we can code variables in Python and Rebel.it. So now we're going to learn how to print variables. Now we know that variables are basically something that holds a string or an integer or a list or something else like that. But why do we need them? Let's say your teacher or your tutor is telling you to do this challenge. The challenge is to print the number 5 without printing the string or number 5. Now what I mean by this is you can't print it directly. You can't print it like print 1, 2, 3. Or you cannot print it like a string. You have to print it somehow. It cannot be numbers. You can't print straight numbers. But you can't print it in the string form either. Now in this case, what will we do? This is where variables come in. So variables can have any name. Let's say they can have the word and, or AD, or absolutely not. It could be anything. But it can't be straight up numbers. You cannot say that 2 is equal to 13. It just doesn't make sense. You're basically saying numbers as 1, 13, 3. It just doesn't make sense. But you can have things like start 2 or start 0, start 123. You can have variables like this, but you can't have variables with just plain numbers. So we're going to name our variable number. And our number is going to be equal to number 5 because we're trying to print 5. Now, all we have to do is say print number. Before, we were experimenting and we couldn't print out straight off numbers. It would give us an error. In this case, we are doing a straight off word, and there's no quotations around it. And there's no red error either. Why? This is because I've already defined number. Numbers, like variables, are things which you hold something. And in this case, my number is a variable, and it's holding the letter or number 5. So when I run it, I'll get 5. I accomplished my challenge. So why do we even need to use variables? And we're going to experiment with some more about this. We can say that we're going to start like this. So start will be my variable, and start will be equal to the letter or string dog. I can print start. Simple. Like this. I can run it, and I'll get dog. Now, some people wonder, why doesn't it print start? Why does it print the thing inside the thing start? This is why. We said that start is equal to something. Let's say we're doing some math, and I'm going to use the same example I used earlier. Let's say 5x is equal to 10, what will be x? And in this case, x is going to be equal to 2. So when we say, what is x, we're not saying, okay, what's the letter x? It's just x, right? But we're saying, in this case, what the letter x is, meaning 2. So if we say print your x, or write your x, you will not print x, but you'll print 2. The same thing goes on with these. You're not printing start, you're just printing the thing inside it, or the dog. So what if we wanted to add numbers or strings together? So let's say we wanted to print dog rocks. So we're going to say and another variable is equal to rocks. Now we're going to print both these together. I'm going to do print start plus end. And when we run it, we'll get dog rocks. But we don't want a simple together word. We want it to be, we want a space here. So to do that, we have to add another string in between it. You could use variables to do that, or you could simply just do this. You can add strings in the middle of your printing sentence. And when you run it, you get dog rocks. Let's say we wanted to add numbers. So we're going to do num1 is equal to the number 13, and num2 is equal to the number 1. When we print it, we want to add these two numbers together. So 13 plus 1. We could do this. Or we could do print num1 plus num2. We get the same output, 14, 14. We could also subtract numbers. We can do 13 minus 1, or num1 minus num2. And when we run it, we'll get 12 and 12. Now some people wonder, why not add strings and integers together? And this is totally possible. We're going to start off fresh. Let's say my variable is going to be called string. And my string is equal to, let's say, string. My string is equal to string, which is string. And we want to do string 9 times. We're not going to print string 9 times, but we're going to do string 9. String space 9. We're basically going to print string 9. So we're going to make another variable in this case, and it's going to be called number. And our number is going to be equal to a number, which is 9. And then all we have to do is print string plus number, right? Now, this might seem to work, but we see a faint yellow line, which probably means something's wrong. We're not sure what yet, so we're going to run it to make sure. And yes, there's a big weird error. So this doesn't work. The reason this is you can't really add strings and numbers together in this situation. But to make it work, there's something called str. When you want to turn your integer into a string, all you have to do is use the str function. Str stands for string, and int stands for integer. Now this number is possible, can be turned into a string. I can do str number, and now str number is actually going to be equal to something like this. It used to be 9. Now it is 9 in the string format. So when we run it, it should work. It would give us string 9. And just for formality, we're going to add a space in between it. And when we run it, we'll get string space 9. Now let's say we wanted to add a string and a number together, but we're not going to change our number into a string, but we're instead going to change our string into a number. To do this, all you need to do is, let's say we're going to make a different variable. It's going to be called numString, which is going to be equal to the string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have a num, or number, which is going to be equal to 13. Or let's say we're going to set 1 to make it simpler. Now we're going to add these two strings and numbers together. We're going to do print numString plus num. We're going to run it, but it gives us an error. So something is wrong. And we know that that's wrong, but just to make sure, we just tried it out. Now, we're not going to change our number into a string, but instead we're going to change our numString, or string, into a number. And when you want to do this, all you have to do is use the int function. The int function is used when wanting to change my string into an integer. Now, this doesn't work always, because sometimes, let's say, string cannot be turned into an integer. If I had the string dog, let's say, we're going to name another one. It's going to be equal to dog. We cannot change this string into a number. It's just not possible. But we can change numString into an integer by doing this. Int numString. And when I run it, I'll get the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is correct. Just to make everyone understand that you can't change all strings into integers, we're going to do another experiment. We have ABCD, which is equal to a string called dog. So when I do integer ABCD plus num, which is the number 1, and I run it, I'll get some errors, because you cannot change dog into a number. In your mind, I mean, if you're thinking of something, you could probably do that, but in Python, it doesn't work like that. There's probably some other function, or you're going to have to create a formula or make your own function to make this work. So that's it on variables. Now we're going to see how variables are very similar in Python version 2. So let's do it. Variables work the same way in Python version 2 or any Python version. So far, of course. Let's say we have another variable called and, or sorry, not and, because and is an inbuilt function, but let's say a is my variable, and I'm going to put the word dog in this variable. I can print a, and when I run it, I get dog. There's nothing special in versions between variables. Everything is usually the same. You can try and test it out, see if there's any difference. If there are, you can list it in the comments below, and I will try to check it and ensure that your question is answered. So now let's see and have some fun with something called input, a very fun and interesting function. Input. Input is similar to the function print. Instead of just printing text, input prints a question which the person on the other end is able to answer. Input is a way to interact with humans and computers. You can ask the person on the other end questions, like what's their favorite food, or what's their favorite movie, or what's their name, and they'll be able to tell you information based on that. Now we're going to see how input works in all different Python versions. Maybe it's the same thing, maybe there's nothing different at all, or maybe it's totally different, just like print. Let's go find out. So now that we know what input means, we're going to see how to code it. But before we do anything, we're going to learn about inbuilt functions. So what are inbuilt functions? Inbuilt functions are basically functions that are inbuilt. Functions here meaning pieces of code or programs. These inbuilt functions are written by someone else and we are using. Some examples of an inbuilt function are print and input, which we were learning about. So now we're going to start coding input. Now when we were doing print, all we had to do was write print and then brackets. In input, you can guess the same thing. You're going to do input brackets. So now, input is used to answer a question. So we're going to put something before it. We're going to print something before it. So we're going to do print, ask a question. What is your favorite food? Question mark. So we're going to run this, and you can guess what it does. It'll ask us, what is your favorite food? And we can answer it. My favorite food is popcorn. Yes, it does. So it asks us, what's your favorite food? And we answer popcorn. Now we're going to go back here. We're going to think, can this be written in a simpler form? Instead of 2 lines, can we write it in just 1 line? And yes, this is totally possible. So how do we do this? Well, let's say we write input again. And instead of printing something before it, we'll put this what is your favorite food inside it. So kind of like this. This will output the same thing, but it might be a little bit different. Let's explore by running it. So it's asking us, what's our favorite food? It's popcorn. What's our favorite food again? But this time, instead of asking us here, it asks us over here. So we have to answer over here. And then we enter, it finishes. It's the only difference. It does the same thing, but instead of putting it on the end, this puts on the new line. So how do we make this the same thing? This one seems a bit more formalized than this, but is it still possible to put it in 1 line? And yes, it is. Remember, when we were learning about strings and having some fun with them, we were learning about backslash. So backslash is something which you write in strings and it does stuff according to which letter you put after it. And remember, we also did a backslash n. Now what does backslash n do? N stands for new line. T stands for tab. And there are many more which you can explore and learn about. But in this case, since we want it to be more like this, we're going to have to put a backslash n after it. So when we run this, it'll ask us what's our favorite food? Popcorn. What's our favorite food again? Popcorn. Remember, these two are different. This one is a more formalized version, and this one is a version, it says the same thing, but it's just not as formalized. But to make it formalized, we put a backslash n. And so when I press enter, it asks us what's my favorite food, and instead of asking us over here, it asks us over here. So we can do popcorn. And it finishes. So what if we want to do something with this answer? Let's say we don't want to just let them answer it. We want to do something with it. Like print it to them instead of just they typing it. We'll print, I know your favorite food now. It's popcorn or burgers or pizza, something like that. And to do this, we use variables. So let's put our formalized version in one line inside a variable called question. So question is equal to input, what is your favorite food, \n. And now we're going to print our question. Now take a moment to pause this video and think, what does this print? Will it print what is your favorite food, \n? Will it print this entire statement? Will it print question? Will it print a number? What will it print? Now we're going to find out by running it. So let's run it. Ask us, what's your favorite food? Popcorn, popcorn, popcorn. And then it prints popcorn. So if you got this right, give yourself a pat on the back. So let's see why it did this. Well, think of it like this. In the beginning, question was equal to this. What is your favorite food? But after we answered it, question doesn't become the same thing. It doesn't become what's your favorite food. But instead, it becomes our answer. In my case, popcorn. So when we ask us to print question, and it won't print this, but instead, it'll print your answer. Now we can tell the user who's playing this game or something that, woohoo, I know your favorite food. It's popcorn. So print, and remember, when we were adding strings to strings, like this, we'll use the same thing here. So everything connects together. So far, you've learned that everything connects together. So strings and strings, variables, all of it. We're using it all in input. And we're even using a little bit more. So we're going to say print, and now we're going to say, wow, I know your favorite food. It is space, then we do an addition sign or sum, and then put question, our variable, which will be popcorn in my case. And then, again, to be formalized, we're going to put a period at the end. So now we're going to run it. It'll ask us what's your favorite food, popcorn. What's your favorite food, popcorn. What's your food, popcorn. Wow, I know your favorite food. It's popcorn. So you can see that all of this connects together. All that we've learned, you can use it all together in different cool ways. And now you can tell your family and friends and make a little quiz for them to answer. It'll be kind of fun. You'll learn and at the same time have fun. Now let's see how this works in Python version 2 and how it's different in different types of websites and apps. In Python version 2, it doesn't matter how you write your inputs. It's basically the same thing. Let's try it out. In Python version 3, we put input brackets and then a string. Like, what is your favorite food? And when we run it, it asks us, what's your favorite food? Let's answer it and say it's popcorn. It gives us an error. Now this is a problem. When you're doing input in this website or some particular websites and apps, it doesn't let you just say popcorn just like that. You're going to have to put a string around it. What I mean is this. When it asks us, what's our favorite food? Instead of just saying popcorn, we have to do strings, meaning a single quotation or double quotation marks. Popcorn. String. And then we do enter, and it works. It isn't because of the Python version, and it's not because it's a different Python. It's because on particular websites or the way it's made, it bases on that. If you go to PyCharm won't need to do it. But if you do it in REPL.it, then you'll have to put strings around it, or quotations around it. So we can use anything, and it's all going to be the same. This is the end of my video. Thanks for watching. Please look out for more of my videos. We're going to be learning a lot more. You'll have fun with it too. We'll learn more about input and printing and inbuilt functions, things like classes, and more about variables. Every time I have a new video, we'll review what we've learned so far. So, bye.